Time for us to say good afternoon to Carmi Levy, CTV tech analyst, who joins us every Thursday afternoon. So, Carmi, I guess really the story, when we talk tech, it's kind of general. Let's talk about the situation in Iran. I think people are very much aware of what's going on there right now. The internet turned off. Where are we on this? Because I keep hearing that if there's Starlink, that can be used, but then I heard that's cut off. So what's happening right now? Do you know?
Yeah, so this started a week ago today. As protests intensify, the Iranian government essentially shut off all telecommunications. So think regular phone service, mobile phone service, wireless networks, internet data, and it affected both, communications within the country as well as between the country and the rest of the world. So, the interconnects, the gateways that allow data to flow across the border, those were also shut down. And what has happened since then, there was some footage. We are seeing some footage sort of leaking out, but that was somewhat limited. Over the last couple of days, we have seen reports that some mobile phones are able to make international calls, and so that has loosened somewhat. And SpaceX, which owns Starlink, they announced that access to Starlink, which is the low Earth orbit satellite mega constellation, you have a dish on the ground, and you can access the internet from wherever you are. That service would be free to anyone in Iran who has a receiver. The flip side of that is that Iran, the regime, is using military-grade jamming to stop satellite services from working. So a lot of it depends on where you are. So some parts of the country it sort of works. Other parts it doesn't. Sometimes it works in the morning and then it stops in the afternoon. It's very hit and miss. And you are seeing protesters trying to use the technology wherever they can, but it's still not 100%. Essentially what the Iranian government has done is, we've seen repressive regimes use telecom blackouts like this before to stop the world from seeing what they're doing to their people. This time, Iran is kind of raising its game. It's much more sophisticated than what we've seen in other countries. They're targeting specific services. They're whitelisting other services so the government can use them. The Ayatollah, for example, is still posting to X, and they're still using their Telegram channel. So it's very fine-tuned, and it's almost like a new template for how to keep your people digitally cut off during times of repression. So very disturbing on a whole bunch of levels. But the good news is there are some signs that it's starting to crack at the edges and some communication is starting to get through.
As you describe that, I think to myself, you would think that some hackers, given how serious the situation is there, people have died, thousands apparently have died, someone would have figured out to get a way around the government shutdown, but that hasn't happened.
Yeah, I would expect, though, that, for example, groups like Anonymous, which have, been very vocal about their opposition to the Iranian regime and others like them, that they'd be working quietly in the background to bust through this and allow communication to get through. The reason that hasn't happened to any significant degree, I think, speaks to just how many resources the Iranian regime has poured into this. This is next-level telecom ban, and it's disturbing. And unfortunately, there are probably a lot of other countries with less than democratic governments that would very happily direct violence toward their people who are watching and learning from the Iranian experience. And so this is something we're going to have to watch for going forward, too. You'd really hate for this to become the new standard for dictators to use. So
I want to move on to this story because I'm not sure I fully understand this. So the headline is Big Streamers are challenging financial disclosure rules because the CRTC has got some kind of a CanCon decision here. How does CanCon apply to this?
So this is all part of the Online Streaming Act, which is to force technology companies to be subject to similar rules that broadcasters have had to adhere to for a very long time. And as you know, working in broadcasting, Canadian content rules that dictate, and obviously CJD, it's different because you guys don't play music. Right. However, if you're a streaming company and the content is classified based on where it comes from, its point of origin, there are rules for Canadian content that the CRTC wants to be able to impose on companies like Netflix and Amazon and others. And so as part of that process, they have asked, or they're ordering companies like Netflix and Amazon to share financial information on the projects that, the shows, the movies that they're showing to Canadians, because that would allow them to determine if it qualifies as Canadian content. You say, the movie was shot here, but, are most of the actors from Canada? Did you hire local directors? actors and camera people and craftspeople. So all of that goes into the CanCon calculation, and the streamers are now pushing back. They've sued the federal government. It's in the Federal Court of Appeal now because they don't want to have to share their financial information. They say the federal government knows enough about them and that it would affect their competitive position. So as is often the case, Ottawa pushes one way, big tech pushes back another, and it's almost like this power struggle. Who's going to win? Because big American tech companies don't very much like having governments tell them what to do.
Okay, yeah, that's nothing new. All right, let me go to this other story. For anyone out there using Google, and I didn't fully understand this either, we know that every company out there is, using AI, employing AI in some capacity. We learned, I guess, was it this week, that Apple has finally announced, because it's a little late to the party here, that it's going to be using Google's Gemini as its AI. But what's Google doing with their own Gmail here?
So if you've used Google Search for a while, you notice that when you do a search, instead of just getting links, now they insert this AI summary, this AI overview on top of the search links, and it kind of summarizes it, and so maybe you won't even have to bother clicking on the links because it tells you everything you need to know. It uses AI to put that all together. Well, now they're taking that logic and they're applying it to Gmail, so that if you're searching for things within your Gmail inbox, which a lot of us do, and disclosure, I use Gmail and I use search all the time because I've used Gmail for 20 plus years and I've accumulated a lot of stuff and I often have to search through it. This is kind of like a better search experience. And so that's the good news. And so basically what it'll do is it'll suggest a reply. So you get an email, you're not quite sure how to reply. Instead of starting with a blank screen, it'll make some suggestions. They call them smart replies.
Yeah.
It'll have thread summaries so that when you look at a message thread, you and I are bouncing emails back and forth, it'll summarize it in your email list, your messages list. So maybe you won't have to click down to see it. And this is my favorite. If you're starting to compose an email, there's a feature called Help Me Write, which you can just give a single prompt to Gemini, which is their equivalent to ChatGPT, and it'll draft the entire email for you, and then you can then review it. So it saves you a heck of a lot of work, and basically it accelerates your ability to find things, get things done, and get on with your day. Of course, it's AI, so it doesn't always get things right, and sometimes the writing feels robotic. It's still not perfect, but every company is throwing AI at their existing features, their existing apps, and because Gmail is the world's most popular email system, it's the one now that's getting a lot of attention.
Do we have a concern here as you describe all this for privacy now? So it's able now to read every single email you have in Gmail?
Well, Google's been reading all of our emails since day one, and when they introduced it in 2004, they made it very clear. We do go through the contents. We don't save them or share them with anyone, but we use that insight to decide what ads to serve up to you. And then, of course, that information is used across Google's landscape with their other apps as well. So there was a lot of concern there, but that didn't stop Google from being picked up by billions of people. So this is the same thing. It's just AI, of course, means they're collecting more data. They're using it for more reasons. They're probably sharing it with others. But let's not kid ourselves. Gmail has always been collecting information on us. Now it's just moving to another level. But the thing is, and we have this conversation all the time in the industry, you sort of have to. It's not that all data collection is by definition bad. It's, does it merit the value that you get out of the service? Are you getting back in that sense? And Gmail, for a lot of people, okay, I'll give up a little bit of data, but it's the best email system out there, so it's a compromise I'm willing to make. But we should be asking those questions with every single app and service that we use, because in some cases, we're giving up lots of data, we're not getting an app that does it for us. That, to me, is not worth pursuing.
Last story real quick. What's the story with that Canadian advocacy group aiming to break up Apple's App Store? What's wrong with Apple's App Store?
Well, they're saying, so this is it's a group, they're called the Canadian Internet Policy and Public Interest Clinic, and they have filed an application to the Competition Tribunal. They're basically saying that it harms competition in Canada because it doesn't allow others to, it's their rules, or you don't get your app on Apple's devices, and it results in higher prices, it reduces choice for consumers, it presents barriers to entry to other competitors, and it means a lesser of a product, and Apple, of course, benefits. And so this probably will not fly. Apple is obviously one of the biggest tech companies in the world. And we've seen efforts like this in other jurisdictions too, particularly in Europe, and all of them have essentially gone down in flames. I would expect this one as well. Apple built a marketplace. They make the rules. We don't always like them. Sometimes they're called a monopoly. This time they are, but I would expect this thing to be dismissed in a few months. And the App Store as we know it, we're probably going to be using it until they pry the last cold iPhone from our cold
there
dead
you go.
hands.
Carmi Levy, TV tech analyst. Carmi, thank you so much.
Appreciate it, Aaron.
Take care.
Thanks.
Have a good one. 3-4.
Canadian women are looking for more out of themselves, their businesses, their elected leaders, and the world around them.
And that's why we're thrilled to introduce the Honest Talk podcast.
I'm Jennifer Stewart.
And I'm Catherine Clark. And in this podcast, we interview Canada's most inspiring women.
Entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, politicians, and newsmakers, all at different stages of their journey.
So if you're looking to connect, then we hope you'll join us.
Listen to the Honest Talk podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts.